So I don't know if you know, but George Lucas, the director, he actually copied Japanese samurai movies from Akira Kurosawa, scene for scene. So it's all basically a samurai Buddhist story, but set
Oh,
in sci-fi and spaceships. So the Jedi are basically samurai or Buddhist monks. How can this hero, this who has no partner, no wealth, but he's happy and finished his hero's journey? And I think this triggered, just instinctively put some seed in me that I have to seek something beyond these simple aspects in life. Tai Chi, martial arts, gymnastics. Initially, it came from because I wanted to be like this hero. I wanted to be like a Jedi who had these acrobatic skills. They were proficient at combat. They had this inner peace. So all these, I identified all of this as what I would like to be. Just trying to break limitations constantly. So I always believe in working to learn, not working to earn. So this job just seemed the perfect place for me to learn as many skills as possible because I don't know what I want to do with my life, but I know that I should become as competent as possible. So by the time I do know, I can action quick.
namaskaram, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. In today's episode, we have Jahan from London, and he went through the Isha Hatha Yoga Teacher training, but he also has a history of getting introduced to spirituality at a very, very early age. And because I intend to do the training myself, I have a lot of questions for him. How he's balancing life out there in London, working at a job, but also teaching, and how really this being a teacher changed his life, transformed his life. So thank you so much for being here today, Jahan. Um, I love that how you're combining being a Isha teacher, but also doing calisthenics, being involved in other physical activities. So please introduce yourself to the audience.
Namaskaram. Thanks for having me. So my name is Jahan, as Stephen just very nicely introduced me. I live in London. I'm half Indian, half Polish, but have raised here my whole life. And I work in digital marketing, so Google, Facebook ads, stuff like that. But I'm also a Isha Hatha Yoga teacher. So I guess would you want to know how I got into Isha and how it all started?
Yes, absolutely. Would love to know how spirituality happened. Where that seeking started.
Yeah, sure. So when I was young, I was introduced to Star Wars. You may have heard of it, the
Yes.
movie series. So I don't know if you know, but George Lucas, the director, he actually copied Japanese samurai movies from Akira Kurosawa, scene for scene. So it's all basically a samurai Buddhist story, but set
Oh,
in sci-fi and spaceships. So the Jedi are basically samurai or Buddhist monks.
that's why you love it so
Yeah,
much.
yeah, that's why I really like it. So I remember seeing this as a child, and I don't know if you know the concept of a hero's journey, where every myth, every ancient story follows the same formula. Where there's a hero, he lives in the village, something happens to impact his life, then he or she meets a wise old man, a teacher. He then goes off to fight. He loses the fight. He then trains, slays a dragon,
Mhm.
gets the princess, gets the treasure, and then goes back to his home. So he goes back full circle to the same place, but he's richer and he has or she has a partner and they're happier and the village is happier. This is the hero's journey, which every myth and story follows. But Star Wars was unique in that Luke Skywalker, the hero, he didn't have a romance option and he wasn't rich. He was just by himself in these simple clothes, burning his father's corpse, and he was happy. And I thought, what? As a child, I can articulate it now. The time I couldn't articulate it, I was thinking, how can this hero, this who has no partner, no wealth, but he's happy and finished his hero's journey? And I think this triggered something in me that there is more. Nothing wrong with wealth and romance, by the way. I enjoy these aspects as well, but to see a character fulfill the hero's journey and such a cool character, I think it just instinctively puts some seed in me that I have to seek something beyond these simple aspects in life. So I think that started when I really look back. That's what started my interest in these topics. And I also think being half Indian and raised in hearing Indian music, the Indian language, seeing pictures of Shiva in a lotus positions. So subconsciously, these things were not foreign to me as well. The whole idea. So I would start reading books about meditation, trying to teach myself. This is before YouTube. Trying to try to learn Tai Chi on some DVD or just somehow really getting into martial arts and training, getting into gymnastics, just trying to break limitations constantly. And then
did that come from the Star Wars movie? So you got to know about the background of the Star Wars movie about the samurais, and you kind of.
No, I knew these things as an adult. Now I read about Star Wars, and I just discovered that it was Japanese storytelling. Because
Wow.
George Lucas was like a student of Akira Kurosawa, the Japanese director. And you can check online, you can see scene for scene comparisons. I'll send you some videos afterwards. It's really interesting if you're curious.
Yeah, but I mean, how did that happen? You know, how did like the interest to go into meditation? If I look at myself, if I wouldn't have even someone told me try meditation, I was like, why would I need meditation? So my question is, how did that like why did you feel like you would benefit from it, or why did you even look into something like meditation at that age?
Yeah, sure. So this is a bit younger now. So I discovered Sadhguru at 16. So prior to 16, I was interested in Star Wars and reading about Buddhism, reading about Hinduism, Tai Chi, martial arts, gymnastics. I think initially it came from because I wanted to be like this hero. I wanted to be like a Jedi who had these acrobatic skills. They were proficient at combat. They had this inner peace. So I identified all of this as what I would like to be, and so that's how it started. Just wanting to be like a superhero. And fortunately, the hero was basically this cool monk. So it was a good time. It just worked out well. It could have been a different character, and that's how it started. Just lots of exploration, and somehow deep down, I knew that a book would never transform me. Just, from a young age, I knew that I needed something experiential. I needed some practice. Maybe just because of martial arts and gymnastics, I realized that you had to put in work to get results. So I think this philosophy transpired into inner growth as well. So I'm just jumping ahead a few years. I'm around 14, 15, and I injured my leg doing some gymnastics. And the doctor said to me, you won't be able to walk if you carry on doing sports. But my mother knew this alternative healer who aligns people's pelvises. And when you align the pelvis, then the rest of the body will fix itself. This is what this man's philosophy was. It's called the Alexander technique. I can't remember exactly. So he fixed up my body, and before I knew it, I was back to training and back to sports. But on his bookshelf, there's a book called Conversations with God, which is a very famous, well, not very famous, but quite famous, well-known spiritual book. So he saw me eyeing up this book, and he said, Jahan, why don't you take this book home? You're clearly looking at it. I said, okay, cool. So I took it home, and then I was all night. I was just reading this book, and I was talking about reincarnation, spirituality, energy, all these things that this is before YouTube, before these books were commonplace. So my mind was blown. I thought, wow, this is like Star Wars, but real, the Force. And then the author is called Neil Donald Walsh. And then he's speaking to God, or he's speaking to I don't know what he's talking to. But that's how the book is formatted. And he says, so am I a master that you sent to help humanity? And he says, no, you're not, but I will never leave humanity without masters. So this is the thing I read. The very next day, a friend of my mother's, who was a volunteer for Isha, left a leaflet saying Sadhguru's doing a live talk in London somewhere. And on this leaflet was a quote from the author of the book I was reading, saying, this guy is the real deal. So I thought, oh, what the heck? I just read that you're never without masters. The second day, a leaflet comes, and the author of the book is leaving a review of Sadhguru on the leaflet. So I have to see this man. So, and like I said, because I was half Indian, turbans, Indian music, classical music, because there was the sounds of Isha were performing as we walked in. These things were just very normal for me, which made it a bit easier as well. Or maybe for some people it doesn't matter, but I felt that I just felt there was one less barrier to cross. There was no culture shock.
That was a big barrier for me, for sure.
It was okay.
Yes. If the first video that someone shared with me would not have been with someone else, like Sadhguru, like in an interview kind of setting with someone else, I was looking at him like, wow, who's this guy? Why does he wear a turban? Why, so many questions. But because there was somebody else, I was like, all right, this is, and it was a scientist, so I was like, okay, I'm fine. But
Yeah.
otherwise, there was a lot of resistance for sure.
Okay, it's interesting. 'Cause I've always been wondering what it's like for someone who's raised in a European upbringing or Western American. So that clarifies it. Because for me, I didn't have any of this. I just that for me wasn't even a factor. It was just I wanted to listen to this man speaking, how he looked, the music. Since I was born, I've encountered it. So that was just one thing I didn't even have to think about. But I've always been wanting to know what it's like for someone who's raised in a purely European culture, what that's like. So I'm glad you clarified. So yeah, so I went in there. He was speaking, and he was. It's it's a quite a common talk. It's actually spread quite popular online, where he talks about, when you see someone in the eye, you're actually seeing it in yourself. You may have heard he does this speech. So he was saying all this stuff, and it really resonated with me at the time, and I wanted to know, what can I do? And then they said, oh, so you can come and learn in engineering. It takes 7 days back then, but you're too young. You have to be 18. This is how it was back then. But for some reason, I don't even know why. Never before would I've chased for anything, but I just said, no, I want to do this. I don't care what happens. I have to do this program. They said, okay, fine, you can do it. So I couldn't sit cross-legged. I'm in this hall for 7 days talking about all the processes that happen in the program, and I'm just hating it every moment. I'm thinking, why am I here? But I couldn't stop. And then I finished, and I'm initiated into a practice known as Shambhavi Mahamudra. I don't know how many people here would know that, but it's basically a 21-minute sequence of breathing techniques that you learn. And I'm doing this for the next 40 to 48 days, twice a day. And then eventually I started doing this for 6 months. And at this time, I was in school, and I was at the bottom of my school grades. I was very shy, and I wasn't doing any sports, to the point where I would walk out of exams. I would just do your name. That was the only question I remembered how to answer. and then I would leave. After 6 months, I was at the top of my school grades, getting all top level grades, joined sports
Wow.
teams,
What?
socially, and within 6 months, just by doing this simple 21 minutes breathing exercise. This is mad. And it could have been I was a late bloomer. There could have been other factors, but to me it was just a bit too crazy. The only factor I changed in my life was waking up a bit earlier, half an hour earlier, doing this practice, and that was it. And then I just thought, this is amazing. What things that were impossible for me, I could just like it was a breeze. Just maths, physics, economics, philosophy, whatever. Just very easy. And then ever since then, I've had a huge appreciation to for the practices. And then I went to university, and I sort of dropped it. I became a bit prideful, because now studies were easy, socializing was easy, sports were easy. Things that was once a huge challenge for me became very easy. I was empowered within very quickly. That I stopped practicing for about 2 to 3 years. I was in university, just enjoying all the pleasures that in the UK university life is common. But I felt more and more upset and depressed and miserable. I was having everything I wanted, but I felt worse. And I'd find myself listening to some sounds of Isha chants like Brahmananda, Swarupa, just playing. Somehow I was called to it. Then I slowly learned some other practices like Surya Kriya, Upayoga in that time, just out of interest. And I
Everything
had
in London there?
yeah, everything in London, yeah. And then I had my first job in the city working in finance, and I just hated it. I just said, what am I doing here? I just saved my money. I just saw that they were teaching people how to train people how to become hatha yoga teachers, and I didn't even want to teach. I wanted sadhana pada. I wanted what you had. I just wanted to do sadhana in the ashram. But I thought if I do teacher training, at least someone would check my technique and correct me every day. So I thought this will be fun. And I just saved my money, quit my job, went to the ashram. For the first 2 days, I was thinking, what am I doing here? This is insane. I was so angry at myself for being here. And then I remember that was the beginning. By the end of the ashram, the end of the training, I was in tears. I just didn't want to leave. I said, no, I can't leave this place. And yeah, that's the whole story summed up in a very quick, hopefully quick.
Yeah. What made you decide to leave? Did you feel like called to go back to family and
Yeah, so I guess one thing is because initially, like I said, I didn't want to teach. I just wanted to learn yoga and go back. But then, of course, when there was this calling that I need to help spread this in Europe, in the UK. That's number one. Number two, of course, family. I still wanted more skills. I still felt I was underskilled. There are many digital skills that I wanted to learn. I wanted to interact with the world in many ways. And I think these things are very helpful if you learn how to advertise, how to build a website, all these things. And I feel like I could learn these skills in the UK. I guess I had a big social circle that attracted me here, and I really like sports, so I was playing team sports. There were many things that I still enjoyed, and I just thought I wanted to explore. But there was definitely this big tug. Even now, every day I question myself. Maybe I should have gone full time and stayed in India. So it's probably the hardest question for me to answer, and it's one. And I always ask. I never know where I'll be next year. Will I stay in Europe, or will I go to India and teach full time there? It's definitely tough. And I think there's also if I have to be very honest, there's also the comforts of here. You have a warm shower, you have your bed, you have your computer, your books, your video games. So I guess there's maybe this compulsive aspect as well that, if I'm very honest, that probably keeps me here. Keeps me here as well.
I shared in the podcast, which was published just today, that there was a Swami who said that actually being outside, one of the monks, being outside in the world is actually can be far more of an intense sadhana than being at the ashram, because now you don't just have to, take care of your practices and waking up, but you also have to deal with people. You have to somehow see how you're making enough money to survive. So you have to deal, like, cook, you have to make food, you have to buy food, you have to a lot of relationships with different people from different backgrounds, and so it can be much more intense than being at an ashram.
Yeah, I think there are many more aspects of life you have to deal with for sure. Because there, it's just wait. As long as you wake up before 5:30 and you get your practices done, you've had a good day. And obviously, whatever volunteering job you're doing. Whereas here, like you said, there's so many aspects of survival you have to deal with. Which food is taken care of for you, shelter is taken care of. The weather is sunny, so it's warm in the morning. I
Yeah.
definitely. You gone?
I wish I want you to share on that as well, like being in the warm temperature and the cold temperature, because I myself, I don't want to say like I'm a warm person. I like warm weather, but I feel like I thrive. I thrive in the heat. I thrive in the hot weather. And so coming back from the ashram, for me also, and now cold is like, um, maybe, I mean, I'm enjoying it in many ways as well. It's not that I don't like it. I love going outside, the fresh breeze, and really feeling alive. When it's cold, you
Mm.
really feel alive. At the same time, the sun, sun is life for me, and so I do crave the sun on my body because I feel it gives me so much energy. So
Yeah.
share your experience.
I would copy you word for word. I feel so much better. I'm trying to train myself to enjoy the cold more. So, but you asked earlier about calisthenics. One of the, just to clarify for anyone who doesn't know what that means. So kalos means beautiful, phoenix means strength. So calisthenics is just, I guess, an old way of saying strength training, and it means training with body weight training, not using gym equipment. And one aspect of this is you have to train outdoors because doesn't matter if it's rain, snow, whatever. So this has been helping me to condition myself, and cold showers. I usually finish and end with a cold shower as well. But I'm the exact same as you. When it's the sun, I sleep much less. I can be outdoors. I can do more. That desire to stay curled up under the covers in the morning is much lower, much more reduced. You can just get out of bed. So yeah, I definitely find the heat much more conducive to this lifestyle. At least my experience, which I feel matches yours.
I would love for you to share more about the calisthenics, like, because you said early in life you were drawn to martial arts, right? So how did that journey continue with being involved um, in fighting, basically, but not in a aggressive way, but rather
Yeah.
in mastering your body?
Yeah, so it started. This is before Isha, before I did Isha practice. I was doing sort of traditional martial arts such as Wing Chun, Kung Fu, karate, and then naturally, as mixed martial arts became popular, such as Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, wrestling, Thai boxing, more competitive martial arts, started to prove themselves as effective styles, like naturally transition from traditional martial arts to modern martial arts, which doesn't have this spiritual, doesn't have this character building aspect. It's just pure combat efficiency, and usually trying to win some sort of competition is a big aspect, some sort of rule based combat system. So that transition happened, I guess, across a similar time where I was getting into practices. So I initially got into martial arts as some sort of subconscious spiritual practice. Like I said, I was trying to be like this Star Wars character, and the characters happened to fight a lot. So it seemed, and then when you look at Shaolin and monks, the martial, it all seemed connected. So that was my initial desire, and then it just became more of a hobby. I find when I if I'm even now if I watch martial arts and there's a beautiful throw or submission or strike, it's pleasing to my eye. The same way if somebody else watches soccer or football and they understand the game, it's nice for them. So it started off as a pursuit or something and just became my hobby. As many people in life play golf, tennis, but martial arts just happened to be the hobby for me. And I enjoyed having a body that was capable, and it was just a pleasure to have an athletic body, and this is how I expressed it. I was doing gymnastics at the same time as well, and then I discovered team sports, and I fell in love with team sports. So what I had of martial arts was an ability to use my body against another human. So rugby was a very nice transition. So now I play rugby, which is a contact sport, and it utilizes many of the skills from martial arts. And I like any sport because for the duration of the game, you can't think of anything else. You're just completely focused on the game, and it's such a privilege to have that time in the week where you can have that experience. So that's the summary of sports. But calisthenics in particular, I think is a bit more unique because I was going to the gym before and I was focusing on always lifting heavy, so compound lifts like deadlift, bench press, overhead press, squats, and I know it made me feel very strong. But I wasn't really able to run. If I ran for 2 minutes, I was out of breath. But if I was doing my hatha yoga, I'd feel it. My everything would be tight. I couldn't. I was trying to sit in the cross-leg posture. My knee would start being raised off the floor. I'm thinking, oh, something's not right here. So I was forced to switch to calisthenics due to the lockdown. And then I discovered, and I did a lot of research into how to have an effective calisthenics training program, which is very hard because there is so much research into how to have a good gym routine. There are hundreds of case studies. Whereas in calisthenics, there's not much research done. So you have to do lots of trial and error. You have to really find people, maybe YouTube, for example, people who have a very good physique. And you see, are they training? Because I don't want to train 7 times a week. I want to train 2 to 3 times a week maximum and still have good results. It's very hard to find people who have achieved this with calisthenics. So eventually now I feel I found this. I added it initially as a survival to replace gym in lockdown. And now I realized that, wow, I'm getting stronger, I'm getting more athletic, but I'm not losing flexibility. So this became a win-win. And I'm exposed to the elements, I'm outdoors. And I think moving your body weight from A to B, as opposed to moving an external object from A to B, has a very different impact on the system. I think it builds the tendon strength. It feels much nicer. The best test is there's a program called Angamardana, which is a Isha fitness program using the classical Hatha Yoga science as a means of fitness, physical exercise. And if you can still do this after doing calisthenics, you know your body hasn't suffered. Whereas if I go to the gym a lot and then I try Angamardana, it's really, in my experience, it's really tough.
Same,
the body
same.
struggles.
I got drawn. Yes, I got drawn to go into lifting weights again because I liked how it felt in some way. I used to be like I tried to just like impress other people with how I look and what I can lift and everything, but now it was more like I'm really enjoying it. But every time I went to the gym after that, I was like, oh, why did I do this? Now I can't sit comfortably. I can't do my yoga, and it's just priority. But it sounds super interesting what you're sharing about this. I might look up, deeper into it.
Yeah, in terms of calisthenics, my favorite inspiration is an Instagram channel called The Mindful Mover, and it's very efficient, only 5 exercises, and I feel it's been working very well. Many people are showing the results, and I can go on about this a lot, so I don't want to go off topic, but I think it's one more thing I'll say about calisthenics. If you're interested, let's say if you work on calisthenics strength building, your gym numbers will go up for free, and you will gain skills for free. So you'll get a handstand, you'll get a muscle up, you'll be able to do a planche, front lever. These are all calisthenics moves. So when you work calisthenics, not only do you get stronger, you also unlock these really interesting abilities to use the body in a certain way. Whereas if you just go for the gym, you won't get those for free, if that makes sense. Whereas in calisthenics, you unlock so many abilities of the body indirectly just through the process of training. The one downside of calisthenics, it's very hard to find a good, reliable program, a good way to train. Because someone who goes to the gym, within one day of researching, they can find an efficient program because there's so much. That's probably the biggest battle of calisthenics, is finding a good routine. Because anyone can tell you do 100 pull-ups, 2,000 push-ups, 1,000 squats. Doesn't mean anything.
I've been really inspired by watching your videos on Instagram where you show your routine, and like just seeing that, I feel it's because even Sadhguru and many other masters have said this, that we have a certain amount of energy within our body that needs to be used, just like we have it in our brains, just like we have it in different parts of the body. And so I do feel that along with classical hatha yoga, which brings balance, which brings clarity, my body is craving for more movement, and so just taking a run is fine, but I do feel that something like calisthenics can be molded together quite well with it. That's why I'm really curious about it. So
Yeah.
thank you for sharing.
Another thing I would say is if you're in the ashram, you're volunteering, you're doing physical work in the serving food in the kitchen, moving carpets around. Whereas when you're at home, sitting at a desk all day, I feel I need that extra physical activity, and that's another reason why I really like keeping up sports or training. For the reasons you're saying, to use that allocated energy for physical movement. And I found it to be quite beneficial. And just to sum up, I think in my experience, if you're going to do it, I found that the calisthenics sinks in much better with hatha yoga than the gym training. And maybe somebody else may feel otherwise. I can only speak for my experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing I really enjoyed is skipping, or jump rope, as the Americans call it, because it's very low impact, so it strengthens your ankles and knees, and it's much more efficient. So 10 minutes of skipping is equivalent to 30 minutes of jogging, according to some studies. And you have to work your rhythm, your timing. There are different patterns you can do. So this is another thing I've discovered recently that I really enjoyed.
Mm. Yeah. It's quite interesting what you shared about martial arts as well, because I remember one of the video games that I played in my childhood is like my favorite video game was Tekken 3 and Tekken 5, and so there are different fighters who have different styles of fighting.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was always drawn to one character who was doing capoeira, the
Brazilian style.
Yeah.
I did capoeira for 2 years actually. Capoeira is really fun. I don't think it's a combat effective style. It's more like breakdancing, like gymnastics. But it's a very interesting history. So the African slaves in Brazil, I don't know if you know the story.
No.
So they wanted to train how to fight, but they didn't want their slave masters to know they were training. So they pretended they would dance. But they were actually training how to. So they have an instrument called a berimbau. I don't know how my Portuguese is terrible, but not terrible. I don't speak any Portuguese, so I might be pronouncing that. Yeah, I think berimbau. I think that's how you say it. And it has two notes, and they will change the song based on if the slave owners are walking past, and they'd make it more like a dance. Then when the slave owners leaving, they'll change the song, and it'll become more like a march. That's why they're always dancing, and the hands are near because they had handcuffs, right? So they had to practice fighting with their hands. And there are two styles. There's capoeira Angola, which is more like the martial art, and there's capoeira regional, which is more like the one in Tekken, where it's like flashy and.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Interesting history.
For me, it was just because you just shared about the rhythm, jumping the rope and the rhythm. That for me was the same, just moving the body in a way which is very rhythmical, and because I find that dance plays quite an important role in our lives, in our cultures, in our
Look at every top boxer in history. They always skip rope really well. All the top fighters will be skipping because their timing is good. They have to jab just at the right time. So the skipping helps build the timing, coordination. and being bouncing on the feet.
How was that during training for you? When you were going through the teacher's training? I mean, the schedule is probably doesn't allow you to do any of that, but then you do your practices twice a day. So how was the experience of going through the training, coming from a background which was heavily focused on physic like martial arts?
Yeah. I mean, just to clarify, I wasn't any high level in martial arts. It was just a casual, 2 to 3 times a week, like a hobby. So with the ashram, I'd say it was much when in the training at least, it's much more physically intense than how I was living before. Much more. First of all, I could barely sit down on the floor cross-legged. That was the first battle. I was probably doing around 9 hours of sadhana a day because I learned shunya during the training, so I added that as well. Then I was doing hatha yoga twice a day, and I was very content because we had Surya Shakti, we had Anga Mardana. These are very physically. I wasn't building muscle. I lost 15 kilograms of weight when I was there. A lot of that muscle, so I became much slimmer. But I didn't feel internally. I didn't feel as if I was lacking for physical activity at all. If anything, it was much more physically active because from morning to night, you're constantly in some activity, whether it's and there's a lot going on. You have to be very focused. I mean, I would be asleep at 12 sometimes, up at 4, so I wasn't sleeping much. I should have been sleeping at 10, but you'd end up talking to your roommate or or doing other stuff, so or studying. So I didn't to answer your question. I didn't feel the lack or miss. I wasn't missing it at all. If anything, when I came back here, I'm adding all these sports and activity to build up the intensity. If anything, I'm making up for it here as opposed to lacking it there.
Mm.
The only thing is, if you care about having a nice physique, you can't maintain it with the practices. That's just my personal thing. I liked having a bit more muscle, and maybe that will pass in a year, 2 years time. Maybe this is something I won't think about anymore. But I've always enjoyed athleticism, being strong, and
Maybe if you do along with Angamardana, if you do like daily practice of Angamardana along with mountain climbing, like if you climb mountains, I've like if you go into I mean that's calisthenics in some way as well.
You mean rock climbing?
Rock climbing.
Yeah. Yeah, rock climbing definitely get very. I actually rock climb once a week as well. I forgot to say. I do bouldering, so it's without the rope. So I go out about 2 meters and jump down. Yeah, for sure. This basically you're doing pull-ups, right? Well, it depends because if you're really good, you should be using your feet much more. You shouldn't. So you're not using your hands too much.
Have you ever seen this practice? So I got to know about this practice like when I stopped going to the gym. When I had a shoulder injury and I was just like I fell in love with yoga and I thought I should do some body weight practices and I looked into different types of body practice. So I would start to do like I would use the chair or the table to do some pull-ups.
Of rows. Yeah.
And I did enjoy it. And then I saw somebody recommending to hug a tree for a certain amount of time, but your legs around the tree and your hands around the tree. And by doing that, you're like flexing your um, lats.
Yeah.
And it seems to be a very powerful practice to just hold your muscles and flex them for a while. And I also saw a lot of people who would just stretch their muscles a lot, and by doing that, they said they gained muscles.
Wow. Yeah, I'm sure there are so many ways to train. My favorite are gymnastics rings, which is a wooden circle attached to a strap. Then you attach it to a tree or to a pull-up bar because you're constantly shaking. So if you're trying to do a pull-up, it's constantly shaking. If you're trying to do a dip, a push-up, and because of all the different, it's shaking so much, you build so much stabilizing strength. So that's my personal favorite, but I haven't tried these other. The one in the chair I've tried. That's more if you don't have a pull-up bar at home, right? And then it's called an Australian pull-up. Then you can get 2 chairs or a table and do that. I actually do those quite a bit, but I do them with the rings. I just lie down, put the rings low, and pull my body up. But the gymnastics rings are probably my favorite tool for bodyweight training. And if you go.
Yeah.
I was going to say, if you look at gymnasts in the Olympics that train with the rings, you see the physiques are just incredible, and they're not using any weights or gym equipment that I know of. The ones
Yeah.
that compete in the rings, the different gymnasts, some do the acrobats, some do the bars, but the ones that use the wooden rings, if you see how their bodies look, it's really phenomenal.
Yeah, I do feel it's powerful because now you get a different perspective on it. You know, instead of just because I feel like just lifting weights, that's not what the body is made for. You know, that's not natural in that sense. How do you feel now about going into the gym and for me at least, when I came back from the ashram and I went to gyms, first of all, the atmosphere, the people there, like how things were being maintained, how people were behaving and everything. I don't know, I was just very sensitive to a space, so I was not really enjoying that. Is that something that?
I think yes. I think gyms can be beautiful because if somebody has a serious injury, they might not be able to pull up their whole body weight, or somebody's injured their shoulder if they're very overweight. I think the gym can be really good because you can just do 5 kilogram dumbbell, 2 kilogram dumbbell. You can fix your shoulder, you can do stuff. So I think the gym definitely has its place, especially if you're overweight or if you're injured. Because then you can use the machines which stabilize you in place, which I wouldn't use at this age and at this level of health, but so I know people can use it. So I wouldn't want to single those people out. But for just my personal preference, I have no desire to go to the gym at all. I much prefer training outdoors. Like I said, I like the sensation of moving my own body from A to B as opposed to moving an external object from A to, because it simulates climbing. It has that pushing feel. But I'm sure there can be very good cases made in favor of the gym. I think the gym was invented back in ancient Greece. I don't know when the first gymnasiums were invented, and I think they have their place. It's just as of this moment in time, as of this conversation, it's not my preference, and I find that this because the yoga is my priority always, and I find that this syncs much better with the yoga than the gym. The gym, I feel I get stiff and find struggle to move. Also, and one more thing is, whenever there's a lockdown, no one can stop you training. You have the freedom. If you know how to have a good, efficient workout in 30 minutes of calisthenics, wherever you are in the world, you can have a good workout.
Yes.
Which is a great freedom if training is important to you.
Absolutely.
And I don't mean just work out. Anyone can do a bunch of press ups. I mean having an actually effective, good workout it takes, it's not everyone will know. If you left someone right now alone in a room, they wouldn't know how to have an effective workout in half an hour without gym equipment. Most people wouldn't know.
Just recently, I saw this sharing from a basketball player who was into Isha practices, and he was sharing about how he stopped listening to music while he practiced. So if you do your practices outside, in the surrounded by the elements, you listen to that, right? You don't have some music, some speakers on. So usually when you go to the gym, they have some music playing, or
loud blasting hip hop, yeah.
And so I loved his sharing. Actually, he was saying, if you really want to master a craft, or if you really want to know what it is, then you need to pay full attention to it, And if you have some sound playing, then you're kind of half here, half there. You're not really fully paying attention to it. And I found that super powerful because I love how you say one reason why I'm doing is because I'm exposed to nature, to the elements. Because this is the whole science of yoga is based upon that.
Yeah. Exactly. All yoga is just an extension of the managing the 5 elements that are the source of creation. Yeah, I completely agree, and I also think there's another aspect to add to that. I think if you train with music, what if someone takes your headphones away? You're not able to train tomorrow because you're so used to the psychological assistance of having music playing. So I also think it can become a crutch, which is another aspect. You can't pay as much attention. You can't focus on your breath. It, but I know that for some people, it's really important that they have to have music when they train. For me, nine out of 10 times I'll train without. I've only recently started adding music when I skip because then I try to skip on a beat, so trying to make it like a add that dance element to it.
Mm.
But if I'm just doing calisthenics training, I very rarely would play music.
Yeah, I'm also not dismissing the power of
Yeah,
music. It's powerful, but I feel like I do feel that it's a completely different experience
yeah, for sure,
without.
for sure. Because then
So
you have one sense that's distracted constantly.
yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. If I do train to music, I like this sort of classical music or like music that you'd see in fantasy films, like Lord of the Rings themes or stuff like this.
Mm,
It's a bit more mellow, maybe not heavy hip hop or anything like this.
mm. So in classical hatha yoga also it's music music is not being played, and so when I came back from the ashram I went to see some yoga studios to just see how are they maintaining things, what kind of classes are they offering. I didn't go into to practicing, but
Mm-hmm.
I found that basically all of them were utilizing sound, were using sound, and um, I don't know. I just felt that at least with yoga, where you're looking to go within, where it's not about outside anymore. I found that I couldn't, it didn't resonate with me at all anymore.
Yeah.
So how was the experience of transmitting um, the signs of yoga when you came back, because you
Yeah.
came back to London, so people probably are not really used to this type of yoga. Could you share on that?
I mean, it's because most people when they come to a program, they know Sadhguru, they've seen him on YouTube, they have a lot of respect. It's very rare that I've met someone and I say, because there's usually a photo of Sadhguru next to me when I'm teaching it. I'll ask in the beginning, "Oh, has anybody not heard of Sadhguru, a yogi, a visionary, a mystic?" I'll introduce. It's very rare that someone will say, "No, I don't know him." So they usually come with a very, how to say this? They're very respectful to the process. They're very curious to learn. They know that this is a classical lineage, and many of them have tried yoga in studios and gyms. And I'm not insulting these processes, but they clearly come here looking for something which has maintained a certain lineage and discipline over a certain amount of time. They're not just looking to have a nice body and be able to touch their head to their toes, their head to their knees or whatever. They're looking because they want to transform themselves. So I've never encountered any issue in a classical hatha yoga program where people are questioning. They may ask, they'll be curious. They might say, the big thing is props. A lot of them want to use props like wooden foam blocks, and if they can't touch things, they want to use different external objects to help them. This is probably the biggest challenge I face, is explaining that you need to go as far as the body can allow, and then you slowly progress. Don't use assistances, except when they're sitting cross-legged. It's the only exception. So this has been a much bigger issue for me in my experience. Not even issue, but something I have to overcome. Or empty stomach conditions. Or why should you do the order of the asanas? This is the big one. Or can I like this asana. Can I just do this asana, not do this one? You have to explain. Or yeah, empty stomach is the bigger one. The music is the least.
Mm,
Actually, I had one person who was doing Shambhavi she made edited a song so it changed every few minutes. So she knew when to change the breathing exercises, and I had to explain for for a long time that this is not how it's done. There's an intelligence which is inside you, a seed that's been planted. You have to let it
mm.
nourish. But yeah, to answer your question, no, music has not been the issue at all.
And so coming back without even having the intention to be a teacher when you started it, How did that transform? How did that change during the training or coming back?
No, it hasn't transformed. I've just not been given a choice. I just been, just been told to teach all the time. So just, it just happened. It just happened. The moment I left, I was teaching straight away. In my head, I was planning just to go back and work and do my own Southern Ireland. And before I knew it, every few weeks, teaching a
Mm.
program somewhere. I was telling you, I got sent to Africa, different places to take programs. And I
How
was
was
teaching a
that?
program. Oh, it was crazy. I was in a safari. In a safari, taking teaching some yoga namaskar or something to really, really
Wow.
fun, really fun. But no, it was
Traveling,
never.
traveling to
So
Africa to, wow, that's, I mean, such a,
usually I'm in the UK. Usually I'm in the UK. But yeah, but once you're teaching, there is no. It is such a privilege to. Because like I said, this touched me when I was a child. When I went from someone who couldn't function in society very well. I was struggling in all my exams, in academics, struggling in sports, struggling socially. I was given a simple 20-minute practice, and life just became a pleasure for me. And how can I not give up a weekend to make someone else? It's like when they say to me, "Can you teach?" It's not even a question. I said, "This has made life what was a chore and very difficult into something that's very fun." How can I go to sleep saying no to the opportunity to let someone else have the ability to enhance their lives? Because what this practice does, it lets you use your mind and body at its full capacity. And you might not be the same. I probably won't become Michael Jordan tomorrow and start shooting, you know, slam dunks and three pointers. But at least I can maximize what this I have been given. And I think this every human deserves this privilege. And this is, in my opinion, the way that I found is the best way to do it. So I have no choice but to the fact that I've been given the privilege to help give it to others is it's fantastic, and it's a practice in itself to teach. You have to be so aware of so many things. You have to maintain so much integrity. You can't because I'm still dealing with my insecurities, my compulsions. I can't pass this on. I have to only transmit the practice, and that's it. And this is you have to ensure this utter integrity during those few hours that you're or that weekend that you're managing a program. So I'm very grateful that I've been given the so many opportunities to teach. So I'm great, and it's been great. But it was never my intention. It
wow.
just happened like this
That's,
all the time.
I love this sharing so much. That really inspires, me to pursue this because it's so true, so true. Everybody in this on this planet and on other planets deserves to at least get exposed to this in some way.
Yeah. Even if it's just an Isha Kriya, just something that they can. Maybe they had a terrible day. Someone in their life passed away. They lost their job. Their boyfriend, girlfriend's not cheating on them. But if they can have this thing, I'm not the body, I'm not the mind, for at least 10 minutes, it could keep them afloat. Just it can do magic. If something that was difficult becomes easy for you, this it can be very nice. So I think it's great. I think it's very empowering. And it doesn't matter how you look, if you're handsome, if you're unattractive, if you're rich, if you're poor, whatever, if you're this, you're that, if you can have a beautiful experience within you. There's a very, very interesting story that Sadhguru, you may know this story already, so interrupt me if you do. He talks about Gautama the Buddha is walking and he sees these, I may be telling the story wrong, he sees these two Hindu priests praying to get to heaven. And then they see him, he's walking with a certain grace, because, he, of course, this is after he's been realized, so he has a certain way to his walk, and they notice certain beauty to him and presence. And say, oh, sir, why didn't you come and join us and pray to get to heaven? And he asks them, what is this heaven? What's so special about this place? Oh, you have no worries, no problems, everything is good. So in that case, I'll pray to go to hell. I say, why would you pray to go to hell? He says, at least there I can make some difference. Now, this story just stuck with me as a child that if you make a heaven out of yourself, then it doesn't matter where you are. And also, if you make a heaven out of yourself, you can actually help other people because only then you're willing to walk into hell. Why else you want to go to hell if you're always scared? Whereas if you have a heaven within you, then you can go to hell and do something good. So
Yes,
that
absolutely.
story. I may be telling the story wrong, but that story stuck to me the most.
That reminds me of the usage of alcohol and cannabis and all these things,
Mm.
like trying to become something more than what you already are by using something external
Yeah.
instead of you feeling already at your best and therefore not craving for something from the outside because you know you can feel that way within yourself.
Of course, I mean, there's a reason why these are billion-dollar industries. If I can give you something to consume, because every emotion that you feel is a chemicals, a chemistry. If you can take something and you change this chemistry in a way that is of your desire, so you want to be more confident, take some alcohol. You want to be peaceful, relaxed. You smoke some cannabis. You want to feel loved up and excited. You may take ecstasy, whatever. There are different. How can you, if someone hasn't been taught a way that whilst they're sober, they can choose how they want to be? These things are very tempting. I completely understand it. I mean, every human wants to have a bigger slice of life, and they think this is the best way to do it. So I think the desire I completely bow down to, but the means I think are not efficient. I don't think it will work. I think it damages the body in the long term. It kills the desire for striving. Maybe 1 in 1,000 can achieve some beautiful state. I wouldn't. I never. You never know.
Mm.
But I agree. I think for most people, it's just shutting off. But I completely understand why they would take it, because this is the only way they know to have a more beautiful experience. They didn't know that you can just sit on the floor, eyes closed, and you'll.
It doesn't seem like it's possible, you know. I mean, I'm sure you had the same experience. I came from the same background, like not being able to sit on the floor, and so Sadhguru saying if you sit down and you close your eyes, you can be high. I was like, maybe you can do this. I can't do this, you know.
You're just thinking about your knee and back and shoulder.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. I think this is why the hatha yoga element is very important, because if you're sitting in a chair all day in a Western lifestyle, which is happening in India too, they're in offices all day now, you won't have the body which is comfortable sitting on a cross-legged posture. So I think the hatha yoga is a very nice preparation for the body to sit in long periods of time.
So
I found that it's made the kriyas much more pleasant because you can sit for longer. The meditation practices are much nicer. Maybe if you're in a very deep state where the pain of the body is gone, but if you're not, then working on the body is very, very powerful.
Absolutely, absolutely true. I same experience for me. That's why I got drawn to look into the teacher's training, because I was like, I'm really, first of all, I'm really enjoying this practice. You know, it's not like I have to make myself to do the practice. It just happens. And secondly, my body is just, I just feel like I'm almost like not just jumping the stairs, but almost like floating the stairs because the body feels so light. And so, you know, when I'm like working with kids, if I have to if I have to get up off it from a chair because one child wants to pass or something, for me it's like easily to get off, you know. And so I see how people who are not doing any yoga or classical yoga, they it's the body is just so much weight. It's so difficult to you know go like pick something up from the floor, to get out from the chair. So many difficulties that we face because of the body. So hatha yoga.
Yeah, and I think even simple sports, you know, simple tennis or something can even help. I don't think they even have to go as far as yoga. Even just simple activity, many people don't have. They work, go home, get a glass of wine, and put Netflix. This is many people's day-to-day experience. And yes, 100%. I think yoga will help. But even just simple, even introducing simple activity should be. It might be much easier to get on wide scale first. But if they could do yoga, that would be fantastic. Yeah.
I would love to know your experience of teaching at the center in London, because I feel many people who will listen to this, they will not, maybe they won't know that there is a center, but I think now it's kind of out that there is one. But yeah, what is it like to be there, and how is the space?
Yeah, I mean there was a center. I don't know what's happening now with coronavirus, but maybe hopefully this will be back on as soon as possible. I think the first of its kind for Isha in Europe, I think. Yeah, it's great to have a dedicated space where people are doing sadhana consistently. There is a, it's very consecrated because it has the samyama yantra there, and I think it's nice to be in an ambience which is kept for that one purpose for extended periods of time, which traditionally before the center, anywhere outside the two ashrams or any yoga centers around, Isha yoga centers around the world, the volunteers would have to come, set up the hall, then do the practice, and then they would leave. So to have a dedicated place in Europe exclusively for Isha yoga practices, whether it's practicing or teaching, it's great because everything is set up properly, the ambience is set. You don't have to. I think in terms of pure teaching, it's nice in that you just feel very relaxed in the space. You don't. There's not this agitation of having to change things, quickly set things up behind the scenes. It's all there. It's smooth. So as a purely just speaking about logistically, just in terms of that aspect, it's much easier process to teach in a place like a center that's dedicated to this because you can ensure no sounds would go off. These subtle things that you don't think about. A police car just drives past and you're doing a Bhuta Shuddhi process, which is in silence. So knowing that everything is kept in the atmosphere that you want it's very nice for the teacher. For the participants, I can't say because I'm not a participant, but I imagine that the space feels nice because people are doing practices there, constantly Shambhavi initiations there, people volunteering in that space, and it's a nice atmosphere. And I think it's good to have a spiritual community that reminds you of because if you go home and all your friends are drunk and high and just doing nothing, you may question yourself. Why am I waking up at this time and doing this? And whereas if you're constantly surrounded by people in that same so important to have a satsang where you can be reminded of this space. I think it's very because it's not an easy journey to break compulsions and work on yourself. So to have that constant reminder of a community, I think is very beneficial.
Absolutely, 100%. I agree, and I've even heard teachers share that they intend to come together, to form a group of teachers and to make a studio happen, or there are even some studios I know in India. I'm not sure about Europe. I don't think so. Like a committed space.
Yeah, that's basically like a center in the same way. It's a similar concept, just that it's managed by the teachers as opposed to the foundation.
So for those who don't have not done samyama yet, just keep it as like I want to know about the samyama yantra a little bit, like whatever you can share because there was supposed to be samyama sadhana happening in Netherlands, but it didn't happen because of the situation, and they wanted to bring their this yantra, and I heard about this yantra, but is there anything that you can say about it?
I mean, I don't know if it's like describing how food tastes to someone. It's quite hard, but it's very powerful. It's worth if you have the chance to sit in the space of one, especially if you're not in the ashram and you're far away from consecrated spaces. And you've done samyama, I definitely recommend making the effort to be in the space of the yantra for sure. On the time that it's open, because it's only certain times of the month.
And so it's only for the people open that have done the program samyama.
Yeah, they were early there. So anyone can. So the yantra is always there in the center or wherever the yantras are in the world. But it's covered by a lid, and then they'll remove it at certain times. And those who've done the samyama program can sit in its presence.
Nice.
Yeah, it's very powerful. It's great. Have you done samyama?
I have, but I don't know. I mean, how you cannot even I went to the U.S. ashram and the Yogeshwaraya linga, so one of the consecrated energy bodies linga, was so different than the one at the Isha Yoga Center in India, even though it's the same concept, the same structure, everything is the same. Adiyogi is there, just like the one that I have. They have a smaller one there.
Yeah.
But the space is completely different. So that's why I guess it's just one has to go and experience.
And how is it with your family? Are they following Isha?
I I introduced both of my parents to Inner Engineering online, but they're not keeping up practices. I mean, my mom is doing Isha Kriya every now and then. She says, I'm not sure. I don't hear, I don't get to know if she does or not. She says that she does it sometimes. Um, they do watch Sadhguru German every now and then, especially when I send them certain videos. Um, but my dad said even if I go and live in India, he's up to coming there.
Oh, nice.
So I've been blessed. I'm really blessed that my parents are supportive. At the same time, they are asking about what am I doing? What kind of career am I pursuing and everything. And I'm just going day by day. I'm just doing what I'm good at right now, and I don't know about tomorrow. I'm just focusing on what's present right now, and that's sometimes, not easy for them because nobody's that they know is living like that.
Yeah.
But I'm very confident. I would say that they have seen me, even though I don't have a college degree, even though I don't have any kind of background in any job, I'm not asking for any money. So somehow I'm making money and I'm getting paid well, even though I don't have any background. So I'm managing things. So I do see that because of that fact, they see value in it.
That's good. That's great.
Yeah. How about you?
Probably similar story. Both my parents have been initiated into Shambhavi, but they will go for periods where they will practice for some time and then they drop it for a few years and practice for a few months again. But they're not in the way. That's the main thing. Maybe they're not fully involved, but they're supportive and they don't interfere in the plans at all, which is the least. Which is for some parents is a struggle. They worry their child will become a monk and shave their head, and especially in Indian families.
Yes.
So I don't have any issues like this. And they've both been initiated. They've both been in Sadhguru's presence, so they definitely, to some extent, they've been involved. And whenever we host teachers, they visit England. They'll cook for the volunteer or teacher, so they'll stay around the house. And then my father lights the goody, the Devi goody lamp every day. So.
Oh, that's wonderful.
That's quite nice.
That's wonderful. That's what else? Lighting a lamp on a daily basis. I feel that already does quite a lot. Maybe it's not the same like doing a practice, but it is a practice in some way.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, obviously, it's my wish that they would practice for their own benefit, so they can. But then I don't want to. There's only so I can't force them to do anything. But I'm glad that the main thing for me is they're not in the way. That's the main thing.
Yes, I agree, 100%. Same. I feel just like you. I would love to get a little bit about the experience of being a teacher, coming out and teaching in different places, different spaces, different people. I mean, you shared that the people that come are mostly they know about Sadhguru, but how is it within yourself? This act or the transmitting the art. How's that for you?
Yeah, I think it forces you to uphold a certain integrity. I think this is the main thing that. Because obviously you have the whole training. So in terms of what to actually do during the class, how to present, how to speak, how to correct the asanas, how to spot the mistakes, this is something which you have 6 months of training for. So that's without saying these aspects are there. I think the main thing is that when you're sitting on that table, when you're sitting on that teacher's dais, that you're not some fraud that's just not doing anything. You're upholding these things yourself. You behave with a certain integrity. And for me, the biggest aspect, in my experience, is just not adding your own stuff. Because I think it takes so much discipline to just pass on something as it's been given to you. it takes people always want to add their own flavor, their own spice or something. So just to say, this is what's been passed down to me. It's had tremendous impact. So I'm going to pass it on to you exactly without any as little of a filter as possible. That for me is that's my goal in terms of actual experience, which was your question. I think it's 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 like a sadhana in itself because for many hours you're sitting there and it's completely about these people and making sure that by the time they leave you at the end of this program, they know how to do this practice properly. And this is, if it's a long sequence like yogasanas, where there are many aspects, many minute details, even Surya Kriya, which has maybe fewer postures, is a very complex breathing sequence, which for you and I might be simple now, but when someone's seeing it for the first time, maybe English is their second language, and they're listening, and I can see they're confused. It's very hard for me to know that they're going to leave this program. I don't know if they're going to know it properly or not. So that's probably the biggest aspect for me, is making sure that by the time this program is over, they know the practice well enough to keep it up. That for me is the biggest thing that I'm thinking about. And in terms of actual experience, it's very rewarding. It's very intense. You do a lot of focus, but it's phenomenal because for those X amount of hours, the whole weekend, your life is completely about these people in front of you, and it's a really nice experience.
How's balancing that with the job that you have? Like on weekends, mostly the classes are happening, so that's kind of your what would have been your off time.
Yeah, it depends. It can either be weekends or it can be after work in the evening. So maybe 3 days in a row after work, or it can be weekend, morning, evening. So it just depends on or if it's a longer program, if they send you out somewhere, then it'll be you book some time off work. That is hard. Yeah, it is hard, but because it's not about you, somehow you get more energy. I think if I was doing it for me, then I would probably be more tired. But because it's about these X, Y amount, whatever many people. It depends on how many people at that particular program. For that sequence of program, they're the priority, and somehow you get. I feel my experience, you get so much more energy. You're not as tired. Whereas if I was doing something for myself, I may struggle a bit more.
So your experience of the teacher's training in one word.
No, it's fun. I loved it. It was great. I don't have one word. It's just amazing.
Fun. I'll take the word fun.
It's very
pure
hard.
joy. Pure joy.
Very, very intense, but I loved every single. The minute the alarm was up, I was up 4 a.m. whatever, just jumping up. Loved it. Best 6 months of my life so far, for sure. Yeah. You see for yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I'm already.
You're much better prepared than
every single teacher that I talk to is such an inspiring person within themselves and the life that they're living. Everybody is.
I'm sorry to be the one disappointment then.
Not at all. I love your samurai books in the background. I love your story with the Jedi's and mastering the power, the inner power within yourself, going through the inner engineering, how it changed your studies and how you observed yourself getting better, but then again dropping it out, thinking, oh well, I'm fine without it. Somehow coming back to it again, feeling inspired to share it to other people, and now on this path. So it's a wonderful, wonderful story. Really, I love it. I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening. I appreciate it.
Is there anything else that comes up for you, or that you feel like people should know who might be thinking to join the teachers training, or just
teachers training specifically?
If there's anything that you feel is left.
With teachers training, I'd say really have a think. Do you want to experience the ashram and sadhana, or do you really want to transmit this? I think there are differences. I think with sadhana pada, you now have. I never had sadhana pada as an option when I was there. I think now that you have both these options, I think someone should really sit down and think what it is that they want to do, because I think it's a big commitment to teach. That's the one thing. But if you are going for it, I'd say the teaching itself is phenomenal. Even if you never teach a program, just the experience you go through is out of this world. You understand that they'll explain so much about the nuances and sciences and behind the scenes about how the yoga practices work. And you'll make friends for life, and you have very deep experiences as well. And in terms of yoga itself, there's nothing I wouldn't trade this. I wouldn't trade this for anything. I mean, to have the ability that no matter where you are in the world, no matter what life throws at you, you can decide how you want to be. And if not fully, at least to some extent, you can decide how your experience of life is. I think there's no greater privilege or freedom. And if you want to transmit that to others, then it goes back to the circle of teaching, because then you can help pass that on. But you don't have to be a teacher. You mean just posting all you're doing on Instagram. There will be as it grows, there'll be hundreds of people that might discover just Isha Kriya just by seeing a post. I think there are so many ways to teaching is not the only way to spread spirituality. I think there are many ways, many tools, many different skill sets.
Absolutely.
Someone could hear a song and they are crying, and then they want to explore more.
Yes, there are different paths.
Someone could see Star Wars, and so who knows?
No, it's the truth. You know, we have to acknowledge and realize that there is not just one path.
Yeah,
and
many
different
ways
people,
up the mountain. Sorry, you're saying.
Different people are being drawn to different paths.
Yeah.
You know, that's what we're talking about. Not forcing someone to do something, not forcing our parents to do something, because that's not how it works. It has to come from them. You can support them and guide them, but forcing anybody to do anything it doesn't work.
Yeah, exactly. They'll want to go the opposite way if you force.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so much for your time.
All right. Thank you once again for coming and sharing your story. I do feel that there will be a lot of people who will be interested in this story, and I loved your sharing, and the story itself also amazing, how you got introduced to this at such an early age, and now sharing it, transmitting it to other people. What else is there?
I'm very grateful that I stumbled across it.
We didn't get to speak about your hobbies. We didn't get to speak about your gaming.
There's nothing to say there. That's on that.
It's part of life. You know, it's part of life.
One thing I like with video games is I exclusively play cooperative games. So me and my friends, because we're in lockdown, we'll be on the headset or playing as a team. So I'll try to bring in this cooperative teamwork as much as I can to video games. I enjoy it. I like board games as well a lot.
Actually, board games can be sadhana as well, like chess especially, but even other board games. They really it's again, you focus on one thing fully. If you want to play the game, you have to be there 100%. You cannot think about something else. Do something else while you're playing. If you play, you have to play fully. And that's one of the basic, I don't even want to say teachings, it's one of the basic rules of life, right? To be fully involved. And so board games can be a way, for sure.
Yeah, you can't play games half-heartedly, right? You need to be involved. Mm-hmm. I think it's a great aspect.
Yeah.
With sports, it's nice because you're working the body at the same time, which is a nice difference.
Board games, you work with the mind.
Yeah, I love board games, and it's social as well. You'll see sides of your friends that you may not. You know, if one of you has to secretly be the villain in the game, someone who's normally very honest, you have to see different sides, cunning sides. It's fun. You have a lot of fun with friends.
True. It definitely creates a different kind of bond. Even if you play it within your family, you know. Even if you play games with your family, it's...
Well, you might break some bonds if you beat them at the game. So, so you have to watch out.
That's true. All right. Thank you, Jahan, for joining.
Thank you,
a few moments later.
Today, I was asked, "What is this ring?" So one of the employees.
Maybe she's wondering if you're married. That's why. I'm joking.
See. I thought so too.
Yeah.
But she was like, "So what's that ring?" And I was like, "Well, basically coming to a balance of feminine and masculine and all like a little bit about copper. And she was like, "Would you say that you're an atheist?" I'm like, how is that question connected to what I just said? You know,
I guess that she just sees it from her point of view, right? From
it's a Catholic kindergarten. You know,
'cause the snake has really bad press in the Christian or Catholic tradition, 'cause it's the devil. So maybe that's why she's asking.
Oh yes, yes.
They might think you're a Satan worshipper. So.
Oh yes, actually you're right. I completely forgot about the snake.
Is basically the imagery of the worst energy, the devil. It's the opposite to the Hindu interpretation. Where the snake is next to the god, right? In the behind you. Is he there? Yeah. So that's the opposite.
Wow. True. With them, it's like with the apple and Adam and Eve.
Yeah. It's the devil. The devil in animal form is the snake.
Wrong place to have a ring on.
My mom's family are Catholic. That's how I know.
Feel free to subscribe, like, and share, comment, and we will be very happy to have you join on more Namaskar.